Coming to the second topic of today's discussion, it talks about unemployment data and the issue of unemployment in India. In the recent debates on India's labor market, which highlights concerns that official statistics may not fully capture the unemployment data, where the economic policy continues to prioritize GDP growth rather than employment generation. So basically what it says that the growth in GDP has been focused as the main parameter rather than focusing on whether this GDP growth is jobless growth or it is generating a lot of new jobs. Now, this topic is important for us for the GS paper 3 perspective of Indian economy, which talks about issues relating to development, employment and inclusive growth, where if the GDP growth is jobless, it will not be counted as inclusive growth because poor will be becoming poor and rich will be getting richer. Fine. So in this topic, we will discuss the unemployment issues in India, why they are caused, how they are calculated, who calculates them, what are the reasons for it, what consequences it leads to, and finally, what steps government is taking and what are the way forwards. So the definition of unemployment as given by International Labour Organization, it is a situation where an individual is able and willing to work at the prevailing market or you can say wage rate, but they cannot find a job. That means imagine a person who wants to do the job, he is available to do the job, he is willing to do, but still he is not able to get a job. There are not enough jobs in the market to you can say capture the entire workforce population. Now labor force will include both employed and unemployed people. Now keep this thing in mind, it can be asked in your prelims exam also. Labor force will include both employed and unemployed. Unemployed are those who are seeking work and employed are those who are already working. Now what are the other key indicators? Your unemployment rate, which includes unemployed people divided by the entire labor force, both employed and unemployed, into 100, which gives you the unemployment rate in percentage terms. Then your labor force participation rate, LFPR, basically the percentage of working age population. What is the working age population? 15 years and above, those who can work. That is either employed or actively looking for work. That means they are unemployed, but they are looking for work. They all become part of labor force participation rate. In India, the labor force participation rate of individuals aged 15 plus was 55.9% in January 2026 with a higher rural rate of 58.7%. Fine. So this was your labor force participation rate. That means out of all the entire population, these are your people who are either employed or looking for employment. Now worker population ratio, basically it shows the percentage of total population that is employed. Worker population tells you about workers in the entire population, basically the employed divided by the total population. It tells you worker population ratio. Then who calculates the employment and unemployment trends in India? Basically NSO, National Statistic Office, under the Ministry of Statistic and Program Implementation, MOSPI. They conduct periodic labor force survey, and earlier it was done on annual basis. From I think 2018 they started doing periodic labor force survey on a quarterly basis, and from January of 2025, from last year, now the quarterly or you can say monthly updates are given for periodic labor force survey. Now basically their update are given every month, every quarter and every year. So this also you must remember. Now how it is calculated, there are basically two methods which are used for calculation. First is your usual status or the usual principal and subsidiary status based on the person's activity over the last 365 days. Now last 365 days, that means 1 year is the reference period in this kind of method, usual status. If a person is employed, if they have worked for at least, a person is considered employed if they have just worked for the last 30, or you can say any 30 days in the entire 1 year. Let's say in the entire 2025, if you have worked only for 30 days, then also under this method you are considered employed. So God knows what is the exact unemployment rate if we consider the entire cycle of the entire year. Now within this, the principal and subsidiary status are different. Principal status talks about somebody is principally, or you can say primarily, employed if they does work for 183 days, and subsidiary status within the usual status, it says that if a person is employed just for 30 days, they'll be counted as employed. Similarly, in the current weekly status, The base period is 7 days. That you consider the last 7 days, that within last 7 days they will see whether a person is employed or not. And again, listen carefully. A person is considered employed if they worked for at least 1 hour in any day. In the last 7 days, if a person has just worked for 1 hour, in the entire 7 days, any day, any time, just 1 hour, he will be considered employed. So it captures seasonal or short-term fluctuations, and usual status captures long-term fluctuations, and this captures short-term. Apart from this, there is daily status also. Daily status, which sees if a person is employed in a day or not. Basically, they count the number of hours a person is employed within a day or not. But usually your usual status and current weekly status are the major methodologies to count the unemployment and employment rate by Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Now, what are the different types of unemployment found in India? First is your disguised unemployment. What is disguised unemployment? That means more people are working than required. That means the marginal productivity of new worker is zero. Imagine you have a field in which you have grown, let's say, wheat or rice. Now, 4 people of your family are working in that field, and suddenly a 5th person from your family comes and says, okay, I'll help you in this field. But his help is not required. The same work can be done by 4 guys who are already working. So the marginal utility of the 5th person is zero. That means they are adding zero value to the work. But in their mind, in the family's mind, that person will be seen as doing something. So they look like employed, but they are disguised unemployment. They show disguised unemployment. And it is most common in Indian agriculture, where the entire family is working in agriculture fields, but the work can be done by fewer people also. Second is structural unemployment. What does it mean? That there is a mismatch between available skill and industry requirement. This is largely seen in majority of the engineers getting graduated in the Indian colleges. Some reports from McKinsey and different companies, they say that more than 80% of the engineers graduating from Indian universities and colleges, they are unemployable because they do not have the desired skill to work in the industry. So this is structural unemployment. Third is cyclical unemployment, which occurs during economic recession or slowdown. For example, let's say there was a slowdown in the textile industry for some time when Trump put a 50% tariff on India. The exports were virtually shut. Who will buy your material at 50% tariff? Only the trade was limited to very few companies. So a lot of people were laid off. This was cyclical unemployment, but as the tariffs were removed, they were again employed back. Fourth is frictional employment. Frictional unemployment means the temporary phase when an individual is between jobs. That means he has left one job to gain another job. In between, they are frictional employment. Most of you guys who are preparing for civil services but who had worked earlier, who were earlier in job, left their job, and now preparing for another job, you guys are in the frictional unemployment. Then you have vulnerable unemployment, where people are working without formal contact or social security in the informal sector, largely in your factories, gig workers. All they are working without proper, you can say, a lot of social security and support from their employees. So this is vulnerable unemployment or employment. And last is technical unemployment, which talks about job loss due to automation and AI, which is a major concern in today's world. A lot of layoffs are happening in the large IT industry. TCS, Wipro, HCL Tech, Infosys, even the large giants, global giants like Amazon, Alphabet, Microsoft, they are laying a lot of software engineers because the AI has increased productivity. The work of 10 people is now being done by one person. So a lot of you can say unemployment is happening because of these technical reasons. Now we'll see some of the latest data of the periodic labor force survey, which was released in January and Feb of 2026, which shows that the overall unemployment rate in India is 5%, which has seen a slight increase from December's 4.8. But an interesting pattern which you must see, that the urban areas, in urban areas the unemployment rate is 7%, which is much higher than as compared to the rural areas, which is 4.2. So that means the people in the urban area are more unemployed. Basically, a reason can be that the person are more qualified and they are not willing to do lower grade jobs, because now they have put in a lot of efforts in studies and preparing for the jobs. Now they are not willing to do smaller jobs. So this can be one of the reasons. But you remember this, this question can also be asked in prelims, that they can say that the urban unemployment rate is higher than the rural unemployment rate. So that will be correct. Now, if you see the gender gap within unemployment, female unemployment rate in urban areas is higher at 9.8%, is even higher than male, compared to the rural female unemployment rate at 4.3%. So rural female unemployment rate is very low as compared to the urban female. There is also a sectoral shift, which the periodic labor force says that post 2025 the data shows a re-agriculturization trend where workers are moving back to rural areas due to urban cost of living increases. The inflation was very high until last year. The inflation touched up right up to 7-8%. So the cost of living, the purchasing power of money has reduced, the cost of living has increased, but the salaries have not increased proportionately. The salaries have remained same, but the expenses have increased. So in this situation, a lot of people migrated back to the rural areas to do agriculture, and this trend is called re-agriculturization. Fine. Then we'll see some of the reasons for high unemployment in India. First is your jobless growth, that GDP is growing. We are the fastest growing major economy in the world, but this GDP growth is not reflected in job opportunities. GDP grows primarily in capital intensive sectors, that means tech and finance sectors, which employs less people, but the GDP growth shown is high rather than labor intensive ones. The labor intensive sectors like textile, manufacturing, their growth is stagnant. They are not growing very fast. If they grow very fast, a lot of people, your women also will be employed in a huge number. There is a mismatch between education and skills required in the industry. High educated unemployed because degree do not align with the modern market needs, what is required in the market. You must have seen a lot of news regarding how even in the post of grade 4 MTS multitask service or a peon post, people with MBAs and postgraduates, they are applying for those jobs. Fine. Then you have slow industrialization. The pace of industrialization, the growth of manufacturing in India is very slow, and the share in GDP of manufacturing is stagnant around 16 to 17%. We have a target of taking it up to 25%, but still we are not able to achieve it. The Make in India program, the Make Atmanirbhar Bharat program, they are still insufficient to increase the share of manufacturing in our country. Then you have social factor like low female participation. Why? Due to the double burden of home and work. In fact, apart from this, there is safety issue, there is infrastructure issue for women. Women do not have basic amenities like toilet in the workplace. Then you have small and micro enterprise, MSMEs, which are not functioning very well. They are the largest job creators. They face credit and regulatory hurdles. A lot of paperwork is required for MSMEs to comply with. So it creates issues. And then there are other issues like high population growth and large population base of India, inadequate education system which does not match with the required skills in the market, and the informal sector dominance. Largely your informal sector in the form of small factories, gig workers, and all those. What will be the consequences of this unemployment? The consequences will be, it will create a kind of loop. The reasons will lead to consequence will further lead to those reasons. Financial difficulties by poor people, reduced purchasing power, like how people are shifting back to the rural areas, social stigma and psychological impact on the individuals who are already in their, let's say, 30s but still do not have job. Like individual face criticism, low self-esteem and psychological stress from the society, who keeps on asking when will you get a job. Similarly, a lot of brain drain may happen. Individuals may migrate to another country to work. Then increased inequality will be there, and social unrest can be seen because of it. When such kind of situation arises, a lot of this social unrest can be manifested in the form of protests, strikes, and demonstrations. These things were also seen in the case of Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and Nepal. So India has to take care of this thing. And lastly, your economic burden on individuals, where the government, not only on individuals, but the government also, where the government has to bear the burden of providing social welfare. Like how the government is still now providing free food, free ration to 80 crore people. It creates a fiscal burden over the government, and it may lead to unemployment benefits like Ladli Behani Yojana. A lot of government schemes are being run where government is giving free money to people, which sometimes our PM also calls it Revdi culture. So this will be promoted because of high unemployment. So this all will be the consequences of unemployment. What government is doing regarding this, what steps are being taken by the government. The steps are recently Viksit Bharat Guarantee for Rozgar and Ajivika Mission Gramin, which is in short called VBG Ramji Act of 2025. Now, this act replaces the old Manrega Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. Now, VBG Ramji is the new name of the Manrega Act, but they have also modified it some bit. They have increased the guaranteed work from 100 to 125 days now. That a minimum 125 days guarantee is provided by the government that we will provide you this much work for rural unskilled work in rural areas and unskilled. Make sure you remember these two things. And the changing the funding ratio to 60-40. Earlier, largely the funding was provided by the center. The unskilled wages of people who are unskilled and doing work, they were largely given by center, but now the share of states has also been included. 60% will be given by center, 40% by the states. Apart from it, what else? PM Viksit Bharat Rozgar Yojana 2026, it offers a direct incentive up to 15,000 for first time employees in the formal sector, which is linked to EPFO. Basically, they promotes formal kind of jobs. If somebody is employing a person, so government gives the employer 15,000 as a contribution from government side. It incentivizes people to join formal work formally. Now, formal work will be known if their account is linked to EPFO, Employee Provident Fund accounts. Then PM Kushal Vikas Yojana 4.0, basically to skill upskilling of person, focused on new age skills like AI, robotics, and green energy. Basically, these are the new technology which will employ a lot of people in future. Government is focusing on there. Then Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana, basically to provide loans up to 10 lakh to individuals, the collateral free loans. Then similarly, PM Swanidhi scheme for street vendors. It was started during COVID times where street vendors were given some amount to sustain their business, which can be later repaid, and interest subvention can be done. Then other schemes like Startup India, Stand Up India for um, the backward section of society, then Digital India, Smart City Mission, and Rozgar Melas are organized for people to get employment. So apart from this, a lot of other schemes are also being run by the government where they focus on employment generation. What more has to be done? If still this is not sufficient, we are facing a lot of unemployment issue, so more needs to be done, and it can be done in the form of promoting labor intensive export and sectors. For example, your sectors like leather, textile, and food processing, they can employ huge amount of population including women, and this can be a good revenue potential for our country. We can export a lot in your leather, textile, and food processing. In fact, we are now exporting a lot in manufacturing also. So automobile export is also a major thing which we are promoting right now. Automobile is a sunrise industry in India, and we are among the top exporters of two-wheelers and three-wheelers in the entire world. Then urban Manrega on the lines of rural Manrega or rural VBG Ramji scheme. Similarly, you can bring an urban unemployment, or you can say employment scheme, because the unemployment rate in urban areas were higher, as we have seen previously in the graph. Now, National Employment Policy finalizing a roadmap to finalize the gig economy and providing social security to 450 million plus informal workers. That means 45 crore of informal workers. So you have to bring a national employment policy so that the gig workers also get their due right, because the gig economy is increasing. Gig workers basically include your cab drivers, food delivery partners, and all those things. And lastly, educational reforms, which are the bedrock of all the reforms, because we have to shift from degree based to competency based learning as per the new education policy 2020. Our education system should be in line with the demands of the industry, what is required in the industry. Otherwise, what is the need of getting an engineering degree if you can't find a job? So we have to reform the education system also. Now with this, you have to again try attempting this question and write the answer. The question says most of the unemployment in India is structural rather than cyclical. In light of this, evaluate the potential impact of generative AI on India's jobless growth phenomena, particularly with the white collar and IT services. Basically, the question is saying that how India's unemployment is more structural rather than cyclical. In cyclical, today you have unemployment, tomorrow again you can have employment, but structural unemployment sustains, it remains there for longer time. Why India has this? And what more unemployment can be due to generative AI, which can lead to jobless growth in IT industry. So try attempting this question. It is a 15 marker. You have to write it in 3 pages, and this is part of your daily practice.